I also want to show how I got a texture onto Ethan the character, because this character is just a gray clay man. He needs a character texture. So what I did is I looked up Ethan character Unity. So I literally went to Ethan texture Unity and I found this person complaining here, and I found the high res thing and I clicked on it and I downloaded the image. And I put the image into my folder where the third person was, along with the Ethan character. So now if I click on Ethan, on his character, and I drag that texture on, it automatically maps on, which is super, super cool. Because now Ethan has texture. The other thing that's cool is I went in and I used another prefab from the, where was I looking? I went into my prefabs, I think it was. No, it wasn't my prefabs. It was in the standard assets, and I think it was under environment. Yeah, I did water. And I looked in there and I got a prefab, and I took that water prefab and I just dragged it on top. And then I sized it, so I went like this, and I said, well, I want to cover the whole lake. So I went into scale, and I scaled up the water so that it covered the whole lake. And then I had gone in with my texture tool, and I had made the lake, I'll show you here, I had made the lake a depression. And the way I made the lake a depression, I click off of this, is I went to my terrain. This is the great thing about using terrain. And I went to this tool that lets you raise or lower the terrain, and it says click to raise or hold shift to lower. And I went over here and I took a brush and I can raise or lower the terrain. And you see here I'm lowering it by hitting the shift. The opacity, by the way, is how deep it goes. So if I do 7 and hold this down, now I've really made this terrain deep. So there's a deeper part of the lake here. But on the edges, I don't want it to fall off so much, so I bring it here and I can raise these edges a bit. Let me make my brush a little smaller so for more detailed work. And I raise the edges like this. Or I can simply go in and flatten the terrain, but I don't want those things to stick out of the water for sure, so I'm going to hold the shift key down and lower them a bit under the water. And the water itself, when I click on my water, where did my water go? As I put water in here, is it in lake? No. Instance 236 maybe. There's my water. There it is. Okay, water daytime. So when I play with the water and play with its height, I can drown certain things. Like if I put it way up here, see, let me get that water up there then. Then I would drown the whole landscape. Like here, the trees are flooded. If I go down here, then I've got only a puddle. So I come up until the lake edge is a little tricky here. And that's probably pretty good. Let me move it up just a little bit more, a tad up more. I don't want to flood the whole house. So if I go to that level of water, now I know where to make my terrain go lower. So I can come to my terrain and now hit the raise and lower and take my opacity to say 2 and hold the shift key down and now lower some of this so that it just begins to go below the water line. Nothing should stick out of the water. There aren't any islands in here. Okay. And a little bit there too. And now when I play the game, you will see Ethan now has his costume, so he's cool. But he walks over and he sees the lake, and by golly, the lake has ripples in it. And he gets into the water, and his ankles are there, and he's starting to go deeper, but those islands have to be erased. Oh, now he's too deep in the water. So definitely I got to get rid of those mountains there. They are not correct. So once again, we would go in there and find where those weird mountains were and hold the shift key down and sink them under the water line. So that should do it. Now hit play. And good old Ethan there goes over the water, and there's no more islands. So he goes in the water. Now there's a little bit of a mountain there. But as you can see, Ethan is definitely walking in the wet terrain, which needs to be smoothed out of it. And that's what the smooth function is for. The smooth function, which is this, smooth height, tends to smooth those things out. That's what that is for. Again, my opacity is not extreme there for the smoothing, but if you do that, then you smooth this stuff. So that when you play it again, that shouldn't be as bumpy as it was.
Yeah.
Well, it's still bumpy, but not as bumpy. I'm going to smooth that a bit more. Yeah, it's not as bumpy. Oh. Alright. So that's how it works. He walks right through trees because I haven't turned collision on for the trees, so that's not perfect yet. But anyway, we'll work on that later on.